The lights in the academy dimmed, as the holo-projector hummed to life, and a figure began to take shape before the class. His armor shimmered in golden fragments of ancient metal. His eyes carved from light itself, staring beyond the centuries. As the instructor spoke, his voice was proud and rehearsed. "This," he said, "is the image of an ancient warlord from the first unification wars of Earth, before the galaxies took notice, before peace was written in the blood of millions." The students sat in silence, their breath caught between curiosity and awe. Yet one among them, a quiet girl with eyes like smoke, watched the image, not with wonder, but with something else, something that made her pulse still and her heart remember. The name of the warlord rolled from the instructor's tongue, like a prayer, lost in translation, and the students began to type notes on their tablets, recording facts, legends, and victories. But the girl's hand trembled. She did not write. She only stared at the way the light outlined his jaw, the scar that ran across his cheek, the insignia on his chest. It was faint, but she knew it well. She had seen it before, not in books, not in archives, but in an old piece of fabric kept under her bed, sewn into a relic that her mother told her never to show anyone. She heard again the whisper of her mother's warning. He was not meant to be remembered, not by name, not by face, but by what he did. The instructor turned to the class and asked, "Who can identify the ancient warlord?" Silence spread across the room as the hologram flickered, his gaze sweeping like a living shadow through the students. One hand rose in the back of the room, slow, uncertain. Every head turned. The instructor smiled, eager for a challenge. The girl's voice was soft but steady. She whispered, "That's my grandfather." And for a moment, time itself seemed to hold its breath. The projector glitched. The image shimmered brighter, and then dimmed. The instructor blinked, unsure if he had heard her correctly. Pause. P. The room erupted in confused murmurs. Students stared at her as though she had broken a sacred rule. The instructor tried to recover his composure and asked her to repeat what she said. She rose from her seat, her pulse pounding in her ears. She stepped closer to the hologram, each footstep echoing like thunder through the silence. She pointed to the scar on the warlord's face and said, "He got that from the blade of his own brother. He turned against him to protect a child, not to win a war. No record mentions it, because he erased it himself." She reached out her hand through the light, her fingers trembling as they met the glow of his armor. The machine crackled, and for a heartbeat, the hologram's head turned toward her. The instructor stumbled backward. The students gasped. The hollow image twisted alive. The face of the warlord, shifting from static memory into motion and sound. A deep voice emerged from the distortion, ancient and sorrowful. "My blood still walks the world," it said. She fell to her knees as the light engulfed her, and visions poured through her mind. She saw worlds burning, skies torn open by ships that bore his crest. She saw the moment he laid down his sword to end the war. The vow he made that his lineage would remain hidden until the galaxies needed it once more. And in the quiet, after the vision, she heard him whisper, "You have my eyes, child." When the light faded, the projector was dead. The instructor stood pale, his hands shaking, and the class too stunned to move. Her gaze, no longer uncertain, but fierce and unyielding. The same fire that once turned nations into ashes. She turned toward the doorway and said softly, "The past never ends. It waits." And then she left the room, leaving behind silence and fear, and the ghost of a warlord's smile glowing faintly in the dying light of the hologram. Pre-2. Outside the academy, the wind carried dust and the scent of rain. She walked alone through the ancient corridors, carved from stone that had seen the rise and fall of empires. Her footsteps were quiet, yet the walls seemed to echo with old songs. She could almost hear her grandfather's voice, guiding her, reminding her of the oath that her blood carried. She understood now why her mother hid the relic, why her family lived in silence. Because to speak his name was to awaken his shadow. And now that she had spoken it, there would be no turning back. The sky darkened as ships crossed the horizon, symbols of the galactic order blazing upon their hulls. They came for her, not out of curiosity, but out of fear, for no descendant of the ancient warlord was ever meant to live. She felt the hum of power rise within her veins, the same strength that once turned the tide of history. She looked up and whispered to the wind, "Grandfather, if this is your test, I am ready." And the air around her shimmered, the ancient insignia igniting on her chest, as the ground trembled beneath her feet. And in that moment, the galaxies remembered the name they tried to erase. The academy burned behind her, and the world turned its eyes to the storm forming in the heavens. Her voice carried through the chaos, steady and clear. She spoke to the ships above. "You forgot who built the stars," she said, and her words became the signal that lit the hidden armies her ancestors left sleeping across forgotten worlds. The warlord's blood had returned, not to conquer, but to finish what was left undone, to bring the truth that peace built on lies was no peace at all. And as the storm opened above her, she felt his presence once more, standing beside her, unseen, yet eternal, and she whispered through the rising light, "Grandfather, watch me." And the galaxies did, for they saw in her the rebirth of everything they tried to bury, and the beginning of everything they feared. For the lesson had been to identify the ancient warlord, but no one expected the answer to awaken him again through the blood of his granddaughter, through the voice that broke the silence of history, and through a whisper that turned legend into destiny.